let's get started because I've got quite a lot to say. However, let me tell you that I am on the biggest learning curve of my life with this glass journey. There is a lifetime to learn. So really what I'm going to tell you about is how I do it, how I got into it, what the very basics are about glass, so that you know how I get to have something like that little dish. I will be doing a tutorial for people who already know about glass to show them my process. So this is going to be probably a little bit more simplified than that. So I am going to pop down to there, which is the big mess in front of me. You can see I've got all sorts of interesting bits and pieces here, which is the glass that I use, but you can see that I've got Photoshop in the corner there. I might, let's see if I can get to no, that's not the one. I want to see if I can get to Photoshop, and yep. So I will show you a few things in Photoshop first. So when I why can't I bring up, there it is. For many years I worked in tissue paper collage, mixed media, fine art collage, lots of explanations. And when I did that, I worked with layers of tissue paper, and this is quite an old example, but it shows off exactly what I want to tell you. And I would color the tissue paper with different textures. So if you look at the purple on the lemons at the bottom there, that would be a layer of white tissue paper with some purple spots on, and there would be yellow tissue paper and green tissue paper, and so you can see a little bit of tissue paper coming through from underneath, because when it gets wet it becomes a little bit see-through, and so you know this bit of green here, oh that color's green so you can't see it, would come through the so here for example there's yellow underneath, and there's white, and there's green, and it's all textured and layered. Well, when I got into glass, I decided that I was going to use the same techniques or similar techniques to develop my glass patterns, which is a reason why I've gone quite quickly in my glass work. But I want to show you the bits and pieces of glass. Now I can't actually see what order my things are in, so I'm going to, hello Yasminka, just set this up for later, and I will bring you back down to the camera below. I don't know if I've got one that doesn't show that picture on the right hand side, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so the starting point is plain white glass, and this piece that I've got here is plain glass. If you want to know, lots of people ask, can you use window glass, can you use bottle glass, recycled glass? And yes, absolutely you can, but that's not what I choose to do. So when I buy my glass, I buy it from a factory from America called Bullseye, and they make colored glass and plain glass and all sorts of things that I will mention. And there are other companies like that, but Bullseye happens to be one of the very main ones. Now this particular piece of glass is 3 mils, and even though I think you can see a little bit of a texture, when that melts you don't get a texture at all. It becomes smooth. Hello to you, Rinza. Welcome. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're excited. I'm pleased to share it. Okay, now what makes glass melt is heat in a kiln. So your oven doesn't get hot enough to melt this glass. I must be honest, I haven't looked up exactly the temperatures of when it melts. That information is available anywhere on the internet. And in fact, Bullseye Glass themselves have got a website with all the information if you want to get into a little bit more of the science. So when you make bowls and things like, like this little square one, this one has just come out of my brand new kiln, which I bought quite recently, as I've been showing off. You can make bowls and plates and that sort of thing. Okay, the next thing to know about glass, even though it is, you're not making, you guys, I presume, aren't going to make glass. Of course, you might. If you put a single layer, a 3mm layer in your kiln to heat up and melt at the temperature that melts this properly, glass likes to be at 6 mils. So it likes to be this thick, 2 layers, okay? And so when I tested my kiln and I put only 1 layer in, I'll tell you about that pattern in a second, you can see, I don't know if you can see, but the edges became a lot thicker because it was trying to get to 6 mil and it's kind of sucked in. So if you ever see glass like that, that's why. And most glass dishes and that sort of thing will be about 12 mil. There's lots of other reasons why they might not be. Not going to go into that yet. One of the first things I do, and I learned this technique about 3 years ago from a glass artist who came out from America. There's a fantastic glass art studio very near where I live, run by a gentleman called Mark Lieb. He is, and it's Glass Art Studio. I'm very, very chuffed to be able to recommend them. That's where I learned to do glass in various workshops. And this particular technique, I kind of learned the basics, but took it on my own. And one of the ways that I get the patterns, which is what everyone gets so excited about on my glass, is using something called Frit. You can see it's called Frit there, if you can see through the shininess. And you can get Frit, which is powdered or crushed glass. So in this particular case, I don't know if you can even see that. You can see a little bit, I'll pour a little bit on. You can see a whole lump and you can see it shaking around in there. This is about the texture of sugar, and it's called fine Frit. So Frit is the name of what the glass is when it's crushed. It's called Frit, and you can get different sizes. You can get coarse and fine, that sort of thing. So there happens to be a big piece in there. I don't know how a big piece, so that wouldn't be fine. Hello, dogs. And the other type of Frit that I use is actually a powder. And this is how I get that effect, and I will show you what else I do with it. So I'm just going to put, now this powder, if you breathe it in, is extremely, extremely dangerous. So when I use this, usually I sift it and I wear a mask. I'm not going to be doing much with that at all. This is black, it looks grey there. When it heats up, it goes black. So, and actually this particular one is not black, it's a blue black. It's got a slight blue tinge. Now, you can also buy glass that's already colored, that's already patterned, all of those sorts of things, and many, many people make glass bowls just with the patterns, the extraordinary patterns and colors that are available from the manufacturer, from Bullseye. So I also use, now where is, oh yeah, I also use a lot of bought glass. So there you can see a beautiful red When that red goes in the kiln, it becomes a deeper red. I don't know if you can see the difference there. That is a little bit lighter than that red there. So a lot of the glass changes colors, which is why I did some tests. Okay, so you can see the difference between that red. I'll turn it over and you can see how deep that red is. So glass colors do change. So that beautiful red I pretty much use in most of my glass pieces. So that's transparent. You can also get solid colors. So that obviously is a white piece. There's a little white piece there. This is one of my favorite new colors that I'm using. That's like an ultramarine. That's a transparent piece. There's a different blue. So you can see, you can buy these colors in lots and lots of different ways. There's a yellowish color. But what I do that so many people are interested in is I make my own patterns and colors like that as well. So you can see I've used a dotty piece over there, and here's one that I haven't used yet, and I will use, I think those greens, no, actually I haven't brought the green Frit, but I've used a very fine Frit for those orange bits, and then I've also sprinkled in some bigger green bits to get the types of patterns that I like to use in my bowls, because for me they represent the forests, the Australian native colors. So there's one that's got bright yellow dots. Here's a big piece that you can see. I've got the orange dots and green dots. So I've got a lot of different patterns that I make. When it comes to the black pattern there, I don't know if you can see. So many people, and you can see actually in that that little image on the bottom right there from my Photoshop, you can see that black glass there, and I make that by this black powder on clean glass, on plain glass, and I draw patterns in it. And then when that gets melted, that black actually melts into the glass and it becomes smooth. So there's the back and there's the front. And I try to draw in patterns that are representative of the Australian landscape as well. So here is a piece that is, you can see that in front of me. For me, that represents the tall trees. So I drew that on the glass so that you can see the tall trees. And here's one. This is still big. You can see I drew gum nuts on that. So hopefully you can see the gum nuts. And that's quite a big sheet. And I cut the gum nuts up. I cut the sheets up so that I can play with the glass like this. Now I'm just going to go back to somewhere along here. There is I didn't label these, so I don't know which one's which. But can you see, as I'm going through, you can see I kind of do a mosaic of different pieces, and I see what works. The one I'm looking for, I wish I could see them all at once. So that picture there is, there it is. That picture there is in the kiln, and I've just opened the kiln once it's fired, and you can see that big sheet of all the trees, plus you can see some of the other things. And there is some more pieces in the kiln. I'll explain what slumping is in a sec. There's just one. Okay, so that is a photograph of the powder that I've drawn into for the gum nuts. Okay, so once there's a couple of processes. So the first process is for me to fire these plain sheets so that I can get all of my different glass patterns that I can choose from when I make my hello to you, Nadia. I think this might be the first time you've been with me, or have I said that before? Welcome. Anyway, so once I have lots of these different pieces, I then decide what I'm going to make with them. So this square one here, I will have a template. I will have a square this size, and you'll see why it's this size in a second. And I will take my pieces of glass and I will cut them. So I'll just give you a very quick demonstration. I've got all bits of scrap here to show you, and I use a glass cutter if I can find it amongst. So hello Nene, nice to see you, haven't seen you for a while. So that is my glass cutter, and it is a little wheel at the top there that's got diamond cutting on it. And actually I'll just find a bigger piece than that, which is going to be easier. So I put my piece down, I get a ruler. I usually use a T-square and I draw on there. Thank you, Bertha. Okay, so hello Jillian, nice to see you. So I put it there and listen for the sound. I don't know if you heard that kind of scratchy scoring sound, and all I've really done is scratched a line on that glass. Glass in fact has got like a meniscus, just like water has, that little skin across the top, and you use a tool, if I can find where I've put it. There it is. And this pliers has got a curved top to it, so that if I put it either side of the crack, there's a little line there, and I press down, and of course it's not working because I'm demonstrating. There you go. And it cracks it along the line that I've cut. So that's how you do it. You can get special circle cutters as well. If you want to cut in a circle, if you want to cut it, and sometimes I do, I need to change the shape, then you can just, can you see what I'm doing there? You can just, I usually, have I got a, no, I haven't got a, so okay. I can draw a line like that for myself, and then I can cut along that line. Right, and then I get my special cutter, and it will cut. So it hasn't cut all the way, and there are ways of fixing that up and grinding that off and doing that sort of thing. So once I have my pieces which are the right size, I will, put them all together. I'm just making this up. I'll put them all together, and then I'll get some of my other glass on top, because remember I said it likes to be thick, it likes to be 2 layers, but I make sure, so this is just, I'm just mucking around now. I'm not, obviously these pieces are all jagged. I could fire this as well, but let me just go down to see what you can see. And I will put, the first stage is to put the loose glass into the kiln. And what comes out is a flat piece. Okay, so here's one, obviously I did earlier. This is, you can see it's a flat piece. It is going to become a bowl, and it's got some pieces at the bottom and some pieces at the top, and you can see that it is all fused into one piece. It all melts together. So first thing is making all my fancy glass to use. Second thing is piecing it all together, sometimes with my glass, sometimes with and also with the glass from the manufacturer. You can also get these gorgeous gold bits. These are called dichroic. It's incredibly expensive. If you want to know why glass is so expensive to buy, this glass is so very expensive to buy just on its own. Even the plain white or the plain clear glass is extremely expensive. And then the firing, this stays in the kiln sometimes for 12 hours. There's different processes in the kiln. And you can get lots of different shiny bits of glass. And so I've been putting some of these shiny bits in my glass as well. The next step, once you've got the flat glass, there's lots of ways of turning these into dishes. The way I use is called slumping. And slumping means what it sounds like, okay? You need a mold. So this is a mold that I've bought. I've actually started buying molds as well. But this square the other day, yesterday, this one was flat. And I put it across this mold and I put it in the kiln and I melted it so that it's slumped. Can you see? It's taken on the curves of the mold. It's slumped into the mold. Now those holes are for the air to get out, because sometimes in this case there's lots of room for the air to get out, but if you put a square across there, have I got a square? Yeah, well, let's say I put that was a square that I put across there. There is, you can see, there is lots of air space pockets for the air to get out. But sometimes if you're using a round mold, which is what I use for that, I haven't got one with me right the second, the round would touch all the edges of the mold and the air would not be able to escape. So these holes mean that as the glass melts into it, the air can escape underneath, so that you don't get a big air bubble. And I've been very, very lucky. Small, tiny bubbles are always present with glass like this. I've been very lucky because you can get lots of not unhappy accidents in the kiln where you've got bubbles coming and they affect your glass in not a very nice way. So this is a mold that I've bought secondhand quite recently. This is my flat piece that is going to go into that mold. And can you see what I mean by the glass is touching all the way around the edge? So there are two holes that allow the air to escape. And this mold was actually made by a dish that this person bought, and he drilled holes in it and he's put special powder. We have to put something on there to stop the glass from sticking. And we put that on the shelves in the kiln as well. And so this will melt down into that shape. I am really looking forward to seeing that. Now that's actually taken much less time than I anticipated. Do you have any questions for me? There's all sorts of different ways of making glass, obviously, and I'm really only at the beginning of my exploration, really. Are there any questions? If you've come into this video and you're watching the replay and you would like to ask me questions, I do notice when comments are made, please comment and ask me any questions you like, and I will be happy to tell you. I've been showing off my kiln. There are different size kilns. Oh, I know a question that often gets asked, and that is if I can do clay in my kiln. Now, there is a difference between glass kilns and clay kilns. Clay is fired at a much, much higher temperature than glass. So if you have a glass kiln, which I have, it will not get hot enough to put, yeah, Richard, you're asking the question that I'm answering. The glass kiln does not get hot enough to put ceramics in. So there's my kiln. That was when it was still at the cellar. Yep. So some people have used the ceramics kiln to put their glass in, but you can't do the other way around. The other thing about firing glass is that if you look at the picture there of the kiln, you'll see wiggly lines on the roof. That's actually elements embedded in the top of the kiln, because glass needs top firing. So in a ceramic kiln, you can have shelves, 2 or 3 shelves, and the ceramic can be fired no matter where it is in the kiln. For glass, you can only have 1 layer. So there are elements at the bottom of the kiln as well to heat the whole chamber as such, but most of it comes from the top. You can also do something, I haven't got an example here. I don't actually use this, even though I've learned how to do it. You can actually make glass without melting it so that it's flat. So when I did some test pieces, I took a flat piece of glass like this, and I put a whole lot of different bits of glass on like this, and then I melted it all together just to test out the kiln. And you can put more layers on as well, so you can get much, much thicker than that 12 mil, but there's all sorts of not really complications, but you need to understand what happens with glass, how much it spreads out. If you do make it thicker, it wants to spread out to that 12 mil thickness, so you use special things to dam it up. You can get glass that's raised, so you sometimes would see a glass piece that somebody's done like a painting, and you would see like a raised flower on it. That's called tack fuse. So what you're doing is you're just sticking that piece to there, but it's not actually melting flat like I have melted all my pieces flat. So there's a million different things that you can do with glass, but this is how I am using it at the moment, by using designs that I've already made. I think that is pretty much it, unless you have questions. Thank you for asking me a question, Richard. That's pretty much it. I have been showing off my glass on my Karen Frankel artist page. I'm delighted to say this last weekend I sold my big beautiful bowl at an auction. It was very, very well received. I'm delighted that I'm selling pieces down south at Yallingup Galleries. If any of you are in Perth, Yallingup Galleries is the most fabulous gallery down south. I highly recommend that you pop down there. So I'm going to pop back to here and say goodbye. Thanks for joining me. It's